All right, we are live. Bear with me as I bring in both the Facebook pages and something I've never done before, so I got to figure out how to do that. And see if we get the green check marks. All right, let's try one more time here. All right, guys, it is just me tonight due to traveling and, all that stuff for the meet and greet. So let me try one more time to bring in one of the Facebook pages that we have and see if we can't. Apparently, it is not going to connect for some reason. Anyways, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special, not so special, a something of a Dove Valley Deep Divers. It is just me tonight, the Mile High Huddle senior draft analyst, Erick Trickel. Not to toot my own horn, just trying to keep some normalcy as Lance isn't here with me tonight. He's traveling. He's working his way down to Denver. I leave here in just a matter of a few hours. Basically, as soon as the podcast is over, I got to go get dressed, get showered, get to the airport, and start my traveling with my brother down for the meet and greet, which is this Sunday. I can't believe it's already here. Definitely is weird to be going down in October after the last 2 years. It's been at the end of September. Also, guys, bear with me a little bit. I am getting over a head cold, if you can't tell, and hopefully my audio levels are fine. Didn't have anybody with me pre-stream, pre-going live to double check and make sure everything was, everything was going good. But anyways, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things tonight. Denver Broncos, there's multiple moves made today. Bunch of news today. Some of it is unfortunately negative news. But before we get all to that, just a reminder, Lot E, 11 a.m. Mountain Time at, Mile High Stadium or Empower Field, I guess is what it's called now. Lot E, look for the Mile High Huddle tent. We'll have Mile High Huddle flags. It's where the Mile High Huddle meet and greet's going to be. I'm going to be there. Nick's going to be there. Carl, Lance, Luke, Chad, Zach, Thomas, Ron, Scott, I believe. We're all going to be there. It's going to be the first time that all the podcasters, anyways, are going to be there. A bunch of other staff members are going to be there as well. I believe Dylan Von Arx is going to be there. And a bunch of different fans and everything like that. It's always great to meet you. If you guys see us just standing there, just feel free to walk up. Those of you who are going, feel free to just walk up, say hello, introduce yourselves. I asked that a little bit. It's a very strange feeling when somebody comes up to you and they know who you are, but you don't know who they are. And it's what's funny is the last couple of years, there's always been at least one person who's come up and they introduce themselves with their name, and it's not a name we recognize because their name on YouTube or Facebook is a little bit different than what they introduce themselves by. So that can create a little awkward moment there, but no, it's still an awesome time sitting there hanging out, just talking Broncos football, talking all sorts of stuff. Talking like some people talk music, some people talk movies, like just anything and everything gets talked about here. Gives you guys a chance to get to know us a little bit more behind the scenes a little bit instead of what we do on the shows and everything like that. But so make sure those of you who are going at least stop by for a few minutes, even if you're going to be meeting some other groups or some family or other friends or something. Just stop by, say hello. We're going to have stuff for autographs and things like that as well to hand out and sign for y'all. It's going to be a good time. It always is a good time. It's always great. There's always funny moments too that happen. Obviously when we're live, we watch our language. There's some things that we don't say when we're live, certain words and stuff like that, but we kind of get a little unfiltered there, especially when we start to have a few drinks. And then we end up getting yelled at to watch our language by the boss man because he's going live and it's coming through on the mic. Um, so real quick before we actually get into it, I mean, talking about the Broncos-Packers game as the Broncos are searching for their first home win. Saying hello to everybody in the chat. William Catalano, wish I could meet all of you guys, Eric. Have a good flight and have fun. Yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, I hope my flights are good. Whole story with my flights. The flight company that I normally fly out of to and from where I live to Anchorage, they're shutting down service. Tonight's their last night, so I get to fly up there. About 2 weeks ago, I got the knowledge that they were shutting down, so I had to find a new flight back. I have a severe travel anxiety, and last year I lost my ID on my way down, so this didn't help anything. But got that all sorted. Hope the flights are fine. Hope the flights are good. Had a bad luck on the flight from Seattle to Denver, not last year but the year before. An elderly gentleman had a bathroom accident and closed the latrines, and I was in first class, flying the very front seat, aisle 1, and the smell was a little tough. But anyways, we have Ernie Mays coming to Goes Broncos Country Only. Hello, Eric. Hello, Ernie. Thank you for joining us. It is only me tonight, as I said before. Plenty of everybody else is traveling and everything. Chad was going to join me, but Chad started his traveling. Lance started his traveling. Nick's already in the area, so it was just a matter of nobody could join me. We almost didn't do a show tonight, and I decided I will do a short one. Might go a full hour, might not. We got Phil McLaughlin coming in. Said, "Good evening, Eric. Thanks for holding down the fort. I heard that we signed a rookie defensive tackle. Who is it?" Well, that's one of the news pieces today. Sorry, my mind blanked there for a minute. The Denver Broncos, they cut little Jordan Humphrey from a receiver from the roster today to make room for a waiver claim. They claimed Keandre Coburn, a defensive lineman who came out of Texas, was a 6th-round pick, and came out of Texas. He had another defensive lineman that was paired with him that got a lot of attention, but I really like Keandre Coburn coming around. He was a guy that I would have been fine taking somewhere day 3, as he was a 6th-round pick, because he is at least very tough against the run. One thing that is curious about this is between the roster and the practice squad, the Broncos have 4 nose tackles already. I mean, DJ Jones, I know a lot of people give me a flack for this. DJ Jones is a nose tackle pretending to be a outside tackle. You have Mike Purcell, PJ Mustipher, and Tyler Lancaster as well. So it's just a little redundant, but I'm curious. I'm curious what this means for Mike Purcell. He's a possibility to be moved either via trade or cut, and getting a younger guy out there to see what he can do. That's always a possibility for them with this kind of move. It's interesting. I like him. I'm curious to see what he can develop into. I think he could be a decent nose tackle at the very least. But he's a cheap option. Some of the other news that came out today is there's only one player that was ruled out for the game, and Greg Dulcich, and there is a chance that he goes back on injured reserve with that lingering hamstring issues that he has. The corresponding move could be Baron Browning coming off the PUP list. All signs are pointing to him being a go for this game, and then the expectation tomorrow is that Greg Dulcich will go on injured reserve, and Baron Browning will be activated and be active for the game against the Packers. We finally get him to see out there on the field, which will be a nice bonus for the pass rush that has been picking up steam the last couple weeks, but still inconsistent. That's something that I want to come back to here in a little bit, about how the inconsistent pass rush. It was just something that I noticed. But the really bad news was that it looks like the Denver Broncos will be without Quan Williams for the whole season. He had foot surgery earlier this in the season. I think it was just after the 53-man rosters, or just before. He found himself on injured reserve. They're hoping he'd be back about week 8 or so. The foot surgery did not take. He's going to have a second surgery on it. The timetable will be clear after the foot surgery, but it's typically about 12 weeks, which, unless the Broncos make a surprise turnaround and make a playoff push, that means that no Quan Williams this season, which kind of sucks. He was a good player for the Broncos when he was out there on the field for them last year. But it was, but I mean, the issue's been that he's got to stay out there on the field. Bit of good news, though, is that Jaquan McMillan had a pretty good game against the Chiefs. I mean, he allowed a couple catches. One of them was just, it was a good route design to get instant separation for Rashee Rice. But Jaquan McMillan flowed and scraped against the run really well laterally, made multiple big plays against run. So I'm curious to see if he can continue to develop as a player. He was a guy that I picked up on early when I watched him last year after the Broncos signed him. And I even watched a little bit of him pre-draft, and I was a fan of him pre-draft too as like a 7th-round flyer. I was really excited the Broncos picked him up as an undrafted free agent. I think he can be somebody quality. Little Jordan Humphrey, he was the guy that was cut, going back for a second to make room for Keandre Colburn. He's expected to sign back to the Broncos practice squad, and he has one more call-up eligibility for the season for the practice squad to the roster for a game, and the expectation is he will be one of the guys called up for this game against the Packers. Now, going into this game, the Green Bay Packers are a team that is, in a way, underrated, but also overrated. They're obviously not the Packers that they were of old when, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, the offenses were great. This year, their passing defense is really good, but that's about the only really good thing that they have going for them. Their offense is extremely inconsistent. Their rushing game has been lackluster. Their rushing defense has been terrible. This is a game where the Broncos, who have had issues sticking with the run, even when it's been successful, they need to stick with the run in this one, especially with what they allowed Justin Fields to do, kind of have that reemergence game against them. Zach Wilson had a pretty solid game against them. They've allowed quarterbacks to kind of have their get right game against them, so to speak. They can't allow that from Jordan Love. Jordan Love, he gets pressured quite a bit, but he does well to escape pressures. He's one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. So the Broncos got to figure out a way to get that pressure there quickly and get after him consistently, which it's helped because over recent weeks, the Packers offensive line has struggled a little bit with their pass protection. Zach Tom, a guy who I really liked coming out of Wake Forest, has been struggling at one tackle spot, and Rasheed Walker has been struggling at the other. So Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, and potentially Baron Browning should have a good ability to get pressures onto Jordan Love. It's just taking those and making them sacks that they have to do. Going back to what I was mentioning earlier about this team with their pass rush, is their pass rush starts off really hot. Like most of the pressures that they've gotten in the last 3 games have come in the first 20 minutes. But the concern is what happens after that. They kind of fall flat. Nick Bonito specifically, he's got 5.5 sacks on the season. 4 of them come in the first quarter. He just kind of disappears afterwards, and he doesn't get as many pressures as the game goes on, which is interesting. I mean, there could be multiple things to it. Conditioning could be one. Could be adaptation by the offensive line, the opposing offense, the quarterback. There's so much that can go into it, but to see such a significant drop-off from not just Bonito, but the whole pass rush from the first 20 to 20 minutes, the first half, to the second half is slightly concerning with how consistent it is. As to why, like, they don't pull the trigger, pull the foot off the pedal, really, off the gas. They still keep going. They still keep bringing pressure, but just the effectiveness of it drops. So that is something that's really concerning. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. To help out Jordan Love, though, the Packers are expected to get Aaron Jones back. Really good running back. And with how bad the Broncos run defense has been, you can easily chew them up. Easily, make those big runs, pick up yardage in chunks. He's one of the better running backs in the NFL when he's healthy, but staying healthy recently has been a big issue for him. So the Broncos, I mean, I don't want to discredit the Broncos by their performance, and I talked about this a little bit last week with Lance. They did well against the Chiefs, but a lot of people are making that defensive performance to be a lot better than it was. It was a decent showing, but the Chiefs did a lot of damage to their own offense or their own ability to move the ball as the Broncos did. Like the Broncos still had to go out there and make the plays, but I mean, how often do the Kansas City Chiefs, go for a tush push off a fake field goal? Like they were just trying stuff. It was very clear to me when I was watching it back, over the weekend. Instead of watching, football on Sundays, I was watching football. It was just the replay of the game. The Chiefs didn't respect this Broncos defense at all. They moved the ball at will, pretty much for the whole game. And then when they got into about the 20 to 30 yard line, they would falter, and that's when the Broncos would make plays. Classic bend but don't break. But they just kept going away from things that was working for that offense to things that weren't. Which just goes and trying things that they don't normally do, which just goes to kind of, shooting themselves in the foot. Chase Wallner coming in and saying, good evening, Eric. Good evening, Chase. Good to see you. Greg Smith saying, good evening, Broncos country. DB4L. Good evening to you as well. And everybody else who's here. Probably not going to be on for much longer. So if you have any burning questions, now's the time to get into them. Unfortunately, as I am here by myself, I don't have anybody, to bounce things off of, other opinions to get. Part of the reason why it's only going to be a shorter show, not to mention travel stuff, for the meet and greet that's happening on Sunday, Lot E, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Going to hear me talk about that a lot. Going to be hyping up that meet and greet because the meet and greet is a blast. If you guys are going in the meet and greet and you're tuning in, just say something in the chat. It'll be nice to, not necessarily have a head count, but to see sub names of people that are going to be, showing up and everything, and getting to meet you guys face to face. Some of you guys I've already met before over the previous couple of years. And I'm hoping to meet a lot of new faces. I mean, last year there was a lot of new faces for it that weren't there the first year. So hoping that there's even more this year, and, it just continues to grow and be a bigger event. And just being a lot of fun. Chase Wilner asking if I already discussed the approaching trade deadline. Not really. I haven't gotten into that a whole lot. I'll definitely get into it here in, probably a little bit. I'm going to grab this comment from Zach Powers first, saying score predictions for Sunday's game. How low scoring, I assume. I can't remember what my score prediction of. The score predictions, I believe, are up at milehighhuddle.com from all of us. I can't remember exactly what mine was. I do have it being a loss for the Broncos. Unfortunately, it'll be the first time that they ever start 0-4 at home in a season. Something they've never done in franchise history. And it was kind of tough. Like I went back and forth, but getting Aaron Jones back was just kind of the deciding factor there. I know I have it close. I want to say I had it like 24-17 or something to that effect. It was within like one score, I believe. So somewhat low scoring. Chase Wallner coming in. Actually, first, Troy Boer coming in with a $10 donation. Thank you, Troy. Appreciate that. Saying just to support. Hey, it's one of the things that we ask for. We do kind of ask for a lot, though, but your guys' support is what allows us to do this, allows me to do it full time, and allows for things like the meet and greet to happen. A lot of the donations you guys get go towards travel and room and board for us to go and do this really cool event every year. So we appreciate it, Troy. Appreciate you coming in, week out. Todd Moyer says, Eric, would you prefer Caleb Williams or Drake May? I'm one of the weirdos here that in the scouting community, I think that the discussion between Dylan Von Arx coming in, I had the Packers 27, Broncos 16. Thank you, Dylan. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Been dealing with the cold the last couple days, cold medicine. The last couple days are a little bit of a blank because of how drugged up I've been trying to get back or get through this. So thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. 27-16 is what I had it. Anyways, going back to Caleb Williams or Drake May, I think the conversation here between the two is a lot closer than a lot of other people. I don't think there's this huge gap between Williams and May. I do have Williams number one, but I think that it's more of a conversation of he's 1A, while May is 1B, instead of a clear 1 and 2. If Caleb Williams didn't come out this year, which he's totally going to, and the whole reports about him wanting ownership stake complete BS. There's rules against it. Can't do it. His agents will know that. He will know that. Like, it's just complete BS. I really like Drake May, though. He doesn't quite have that, that magician playmaker type style that, Caleb Williams has, that Patrick Mahomes has made so famous. But he can do it. Like, he can throw off of multiple platforms and make big plays. I really like him. Just what he can bring. I think that this offense that Sean Payton wants to build is also a much better fit for someone like Drake May, who does extremely well when working, on rhythm, on schedule, all that. And Caleb Williams, you kind of want to give him a little bit more freedom for when things start to break down, to go make plays happen and use that magician playmaking style. I like them both. I would take either. I just slightly prefer Drake May for Denver specifically than Caleb Williams. Pearl Heater coming in saying hi. Hi, Pearl. Good to see you. Cute picture of the little doggy there. Zach Powers, I can make an argument for either May or Williams. I personally like the size of May and his ability to stick to the pocket and make throws consistently from the pocket. Yeah, I get that. And that's definitely very like old schoolish, because now the big thing is when plays start to break down, what can you do outside of the pocket? Can you create for yourself? Can you, throw off of different platforms and still make those plays? And that's what Caleb Williams is known for. I mean, he absolutely makes ridiculous plays in and out of the pocket too. But he specializes in when things start to break down and just finding those open lanes. Absolutely love that ability that he has. But it goes on. Drake May has that ability too, and it's very underrated. A lot of people don't recognize it. I mean, I think it was the first or second game this year, he had one of the best throws of the college season so far. It was absolutely beautiful throw, off platform, kind of a cross body, and just dropped it right into the bucket for his receiver. It was just an absolute perfect throw. Both of them have had a little bit of rough weeks this last week, but they're both still the top two players in this class. Zach Powers, the Russ plays where he constantly runs around, drive me nuts. To an extent, like, it's understandable when the pressure gets there. Like, yeah, you want to be able to move, and when that play breaks down. The issue I have with Russell Wilson is that he tends to, immediately drop his eyes when that happens, and he tends to panic before pressure is there and hit that, that escapability mode that he has. And it just can be a little bit of problematic for it. Chad saying you connect your face. I was only able to connect to one of them. The other one was giving me an error saying that I couldn't connect it, Chad. Albert Knopper's coming in saying, hello, Eric. Hello, Albert. Are you going to be at the meet and greet? I think I remember you saying you will. It's always great to see you and catch up with you and your wonderful wife. Chase Walner, let's say Denver isn't in a position for either guy. Are you out on the rest of the quarterback class? I'm still very much working on this quarterback class. Michael Penix intrigues me. He has shown me a lot this year from what little bit I've watched of him that has boosted his value in my eyes. And JJ McCarthy has helped himself a lot in my eyes as well. JJ McCarthy has a lot of the tools that you want to work with, and that you just covet in quarterbacks for the modern NFL. Michael Penix, like, he's just makes some throws, but you have the issues of his three receivers that he has. They're going to be drafted in the top 50, like top 75 at the very least. Those are some talented receivers, and he's got a lot of talent on the offensive line as well. There is so much talent that he has to work with, and like, it just goes against him a little bit. It's like that with a lot of quarterbacks. If you're surrounded by talent, it hurts you. We heard about it with Tua Tagovailoa. We heard about it with Mac Jones, with all the talent at receiver and the offensive line that Alabama had. Like, we're going to hear about it with Penix too. Still a high quality dude. He checks all the intangible boxes that you want. Almost quit football a couple years ago due to injury, stuck through it, and now he's probably quarterback 3 in this class. I'm still very curious about Shedeur Sanders, or however you say his name, the Colorado quarterback. Apologies on top of my normal inability to pronounce names. getting over this cold is making pronouncing some words a little bit extra difficult. But still want to jury's still out on him. I don't think he comes out this year personally. I think he'll give it another year. Bo Nix, I'm all the way out on. 99% of this dude's passes are at or behind the line of scrimmage. It's just that Oregon offense. And when he pushes the ball downfield, it's not great. The results are typically good, but from him, it's not good. It's typically bad process with a good result there. Something that I've talked about on the show multiple times before. So the rest of the quarterback class, I'm still doing work on, and it really ultimately depends where they land and who's in front of them as to where I would be looking at. I think that as long as Chicago ends up with 2 of the top 3 picks, I firmly believe as long as one of them will be a quarterback and the other one's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. Apologies for that. Just going and getting them another high quality receiver to go with that quarterback. They always could go with Fasciano, the Penn State tackle, or Joe Alt, the Notre Dame tackle. A lot of people that I've spoken with have them kind of like right there, neck and neck for the top tackle. Typically, those two are the tackles, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the 2 quarterbacks. That's rounding out a lot of people's top 5. Already coming in with $5 from Canada saying, if Caleb and Drake are gone and we're picking like 4 or 5, what would you ever take, or would you ever take a wide receiver, Harrison the I? Yeah. There for a while, it was looking like a bad process to take wide receivers that early, but it is completely flipped. Early receivers lately are hitting. You really got to scout them and, do your work on them, obviously. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is just an outstanding receiver prospect. He can do just about everything with that you want from your wide receiver. Just one second. I got to drink something. Mouth's getting a little dry. Fortunately, again, don't have somebody to pass it off to, which makes those moments where I need something to drink a little weird. So I would. It always depends on what the board looks like. Olu Fasciano is a guy, obviously, I'd be looking at. Huge fan of his. He would probably been a top 15, 20 pick if he came out last year. Huge fan of his. And watching what happened when he took on Central Michigan is a big reason why I liked Thomas Nkum. Though he doesn't look like he's going to be panning out in the NFL. Still very early in his rookie, as a rookie, undrafted free agent. But one thing when I'm with the early work that I've done on this draft class, no defender really stands out to me as like that top tier guy. There's Dallas Turner out of Alabama, who a lot of people are talking about as a top 5 player. He's good. He's great. To me, he's just not top 5 at the moment. When I dig into him towards the end of this year, maybe that'll change. But with what I've seen for him, I'm not comfortable putting him there just yet. Zach Powers coming in. I'm a Michigan fan, but super guarded with the McCarthy to Denver idea. I feel he would need Drew Lock type of patience, which us Broncos fans don't have. I can see it because, you typically get that when you have a toolsy prospect that you have to really work on the football side of things and reading things. But the thing is, and this will get me a lot of flack from people who are really big of Drew Lock. Drew Lock didn't show consistent growth. As long as McCarthy can show that, I think Bronco fans can be a little bit patient. Obviously, with the quarterback situation that we've had, we want an instant answer. I think most of us know that's not going to happen. But you got to show consistent growth and development when you're a young quarterback, and Drew Lock just didn't do that. So if McCarthy can do that, and he can continue buying himself extra time, like, all right, like that's fine. Like, just continue to grow as a player and continue to show that and show you're developing into what you can be. K-Hop coming in. If we're picking at 4, should we trade back and get at least a second back? Depends on how the board falls. I think right now that's probably the way I would trend. But if the board happens to fall where Chicago ends up with 2 of the top 4 or 2 of the top 3 picks, and a team like, I'm trying to think here, a team who's not really in on a quarterback lands at third, like you can have it in your back pocket, but maybe one of those quarterbacks fall there. Obviously, a trade up is happening, and it's really too early to tell right now. With it, I mean, we're getting ready to enter week 7 of the season, so long time left. I mean, we don't even know where the draft order will be. It's still very much up in the air. The Broncos can still end up with the first overall pick. They can still end up picking in the teens, so still a little too early for that. But depending on how the board falls, I mean, you have to at least consider it. Hester Jefferson, new name to me. Don't recognize the name of the chat. What do you think about Spencer Rattler from South Carolina? Not a fan. I've never been a fan of Spencer Rattler. It's just always been, guy can play football, but his attitude sucks. His personality sucks. His ability to be a good teammate sucks. Like, it's just always been the outside of the football aspect of it. It's just constantly just been bad about Spencer Rattler. I think he'll probably get drafted somewhere day 3 as a dart throw. Maybe you can develop him into something. Try to flip him for a better pick. Something that the Patriots and Packers were doing there for a while with pretty good success. If you're a team needing a backup quarterback, it can be worth it can be worth it. Just as Zach Powers comes in, he's kind of just a dart throw. Could be undrafted, could be a day 3 pick. Do you think that the NFL should go to a lottery for the top 5 picks? No. I've gone back and forth on this. 2 years ago, I probably would have said yes. For me, no. Like, I don't like it for the NBA. It just comes out to be a little bit weird. I like the fact that the worst team should have the worst team should have the first pick. The second worst team should have, like, to me, it's simple, it's easy, and despite what common people think, or that's not the best way to put that. Apologies, that's not the way I wanted to word that. Despite what the common thought process is, teams don't really tank in the NFL. They try to win. It's quiet tanking is what I like to refer to it as. They want to try to win every game, but if they lose, they're fine with it. It might change what they do a little bit. You're at 17-10, you score a touchdown. Instead of kicking that field goal to tie it, you might just go for 2. If you win it, you win it. If you don't, you don't. Tanking's not actually really a thing in the NFL like it is in other sports. So I'm fine with it. Okay, staying with the cold and long fight ahead doesn't sound good. Hope you pull through. Fortunately, I'm on the back end of this. Like, the last couple days were absolutely terrible. I feel significantly better today. Just a bit of just nowhere near as bad as it was. So thankfully, I'm very thankful for that. I was dreading having to fly with it being, as bad as it was. Zach Powers, Harrison Jr. would be an amazing pick if that was our best option. 10 years would be set at receiver. 10 years you'd be reset at one receiver spot. And the way the NFL is, you got to have at least 3 of them now. Kool-Aid McKinstry could be in the draft if he declares. It'll help when we stop expecting this team to contend every year like we have. This is another point, too, is the Broncos brass failure to acknowledge that this team needed to be rebuilt and stopped peddling we're just a quarterback away or we're just this away. We're not rebuilding, we're retooling. If they stopped doing that and they actually, went into a rebuild, I think people would have been a little bit more comfortable standing by Drew Lock as he tried to grow and develop. But no, they just kept putting the expectation. We're going to contend this year. And, well, what Drew Lock was giving was not good enough to contend. So that public perception that the team put on themselves doesn't help with the fan perception of the team. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Eric, what is a top 15 pick usually worth if trading back? It depends. I mean, quarterbacks get a higher value than if a team's trading up for almost any other positions. So it just fully depends on what the team is trading up for, how far back you are moving. So many variables into it. At the very least, you should be getting at least a second round pick, or getting, that other first round pick and a second round pick, or a third round pick, depending on how far back you are moving. I think this year will be our worst record since McDaniel got us Von Miller. Definitely possible. Is Quinn Ewers drawing a blank on how to pronounce the last name? The Texas quarterback, is he eligible this year? He is. My expectation is he won't declare, though. Just doesn't have a whole lot of experience under his belt. We should have a lower league that two teams with the worst record get kicked down to, like international soccer. This would be a great question if Scott was here, or a great comment if Scott was here. I'm trying to think of what little bit I've watched of Ted Lasso. Like the regulation league or whatever it is, where the bottom teams kick down. Like, I think what the NFL needs is they need a true development league. I have thrown this thought out there multiple times. I have always felt that if, you still have your practice squad of players, but every team, every division gets one team. And, it's kind of convoluted. Every owner of that division, they go and they pick a coach. The coaches for it together can kind of be used as a developmental league for coaching as well. But they assign players there. Each team can assign like 15 players to that team, and they can sign and everything like that. They got to do something to help development in the NFL. The average NFL career length is 3.5 years. Granted, part of that is, so many undrafted free agents. But again, if you have a development league, those undrafted free agents, those guys who have only played football for 2 years, they get a chance to really grow and develop about it. And I hate the argument that college football is a development league, because it's not. Because college football teams, what they care about is they care about winning more than developing players for the next stage of their career, because of the money that is in college football. So it's not a development league. It's another sport entirely that's there for them to make money. Bama X, for the first time in my life, I'm in Denver. Hey, congratulations, Bama. Are you going to the meet and greet? I mean, you've been joining the show for what? How long have we been live? 4 years? How we been live? Have at least Dove Valley Deep Divers. Has it been 4 years since we've been live? Anyways, constantly seeing you in the chat, man. If you're at the meet and greet, it would absolutely be a blast to meet you, man. Losing seasons have taught me to temper my expectations. Same. When you constantly go about losing, expectations tend to be tempered. Duke Rose, hey Eric, do you want the Broncos to win or lose to help to draft stock? I feel like you're setting me up to fail on this one, because like I'm the draft guy, so if I say I want them to win, I'm kind of going against what I do. But if I say I want them to lose, my fandom gets questioned. No. With where they're at, I don't think winning them does them any good. I think their best bet, cement the idea that they need to sell players, lose this game, trade them, get additional picks, and actually go into a rebuild. Just, cement that instead of just getting this idea of going down the road. My biggest fear is that this team will win a game. They'll decide not to sell. Come the offseason, here comes Sean Payton doing what he did in New Orleans. And this was my biggest critique of him coming from New Orleans when he was the possibility to be the coach. Kicking cap hits down the road. Now the New Orleans Saints, they're looking at like $90 million over the cap next year. That started when Sean Payton was there because they kept trying to go in on the quarterback. Well, I fear that they win this game. They're not going to want to move on from Russell Wilson, even though I think they should. He's not the problem, but to me, he's not the solution either, especially at his cost, especially with the fact that if you don't cut him this year, you're committing to him for 2 more years while he'll be 37 years old. So I think losing is just better for the long-term outlook of this team, as long as the people in charge don't get delusional about how far away this team actually is. And I think that's more likely to happen with a win. Yeah, Bama, Todd coming in saying welcome to Denver at Bama X. Yeah, I hope you're having a great time in Denver. It's a wonderful place. I absolutely loved it. I I was there earlier this year for a wedding. Well, actually, I was in Boulder for a wedding, but we did go down to Denver a little bit. Took my daughter to the Denver Zoo, to the Denver Aquarium. Had a lot of fun there. Drove by the stadium so I could show my daughter the stadium. Absolutely love Denver. My wife fell in love with the Boulder area and now wants us to move there. And yeah, it's an expensive area. I'll just say that. At least living up here in Alaska, things are cheap. So, Bama, are you going to be at the meet and greet? Coming in, and also there are growing character concerns when it pertains to Kool-Aid now in T-Town. I have heard some comments about character concerns with him, but it's never been anything more than that. So I don't know what there is. I haven't done a lot of research myself into it. Just had a couple comments passing, asking a buddy here and there, like, who's some of the top or who do you think guys have as a top prospect? Who's your top corner? Things like that. And a couple of them mentioned that there's some character stuff that they're looking at with Kool-Aid McKinstry. Bama, yes, sir. All right. I'll definitely be there, and I believe Scott will be there as well. If I remember right, like, I think the day that we got the notification of when we are doing this, I believe Scott said that he had his tickets purchased already. So I believe Scott will be there. I know Nick will. I know Lance will. But it'll be great to finally meet you, man. With how long you've been in here and joining the chat and everything, like, it'll just be awesome to, meet you face to face. You have to commit to a specific type of team coming in from Zach Powers to build around Russ, and it doesn't make sense to do it with his timeline versus our team's timeline. This is actually a very astute point, and one that I have talked about with, people around me multiple times. Oh, Scott cannot make it. Oh, that sucks. I don't know what's going on. Scott hasn't been here for a couple weeks, so yeah, I mean, I remember talking to him and him saying that he had his ticket, so I don't know what happened there, unfortunately. Anyways, you have to commit to a specific team timeline. If it doesn't go, his timeline doesn't match up with the team's timeline. 100%. There is a very specific style of offense you have to run with Russell Wilson. And to be fair to him, it's not exactly happening in Denver this year. So that he does have that going for him. But the thing is that Sean Payton's doing everything he can for him while still running his offense. And it's just not meshing very well. And you can see issues on Russell Wilson's side, and you can see questionable play calls from Sean Payton. Denver can't commit to that type of team around Russell Wilson at the moment. And part of the reason why is the cap situation they are in, which is exasperated by Russell Wilson's contract. So it's just a lot of issues that are just going together and not working out. For them to do. He's going to be a 37-year-old guy by the time that they'll be able to cut him next time. He turns 35, I think, here in just a couple weeks. Let me pull it up real quick. Because I know his birthday's he'll be turning 35 at the end of November. So it's just a thing of it doesn't match up. The timelines don't. And committing to him for 2 more years because of if he's on his base salary for 2024 is already guaranteed. So you got to post June 1st cut him before the 5th day of the new league year before in 2024. Otherwise, the 2025 salary base salary guarantees, which is why you're committing to him for 2 more years if you don't move on from him. And you have to do it with the post June 1st cut because at least that way, do the dead money, his cap hit and dead money cancel each other out. You don't get any gains, you don't get any losses. You do carry over dead cap hit into 2025 for him, but you can still work around that, especially with how much the cap is supposed to raise. Eric, do you think this is Judy's last game as a Bronco? Um, Possibly. The trade deadline is October 31st, and the Broncos play the Chiefs on the 29th. So that could be his last game. I do think he's getting down to his final game or two with the Broncos. I do expect him to get moved. I think the Broncos will budge on their asking price a little bit if needed to facilitate a trade, just to get him out. From what I've gathered, the whole thing with Steve Smith and all that was kind of the breaking point, so to speak. Just to parting of ways. I think he'll do both sides good. I think Jerry Jeudy can still be a fine receiver. He just has to go somewhere else. Like, not to be mean about it. He just has to go somewhere else, get that change of scenery, get that fresh start that he needs, and an offense that can find a way to utilize him to his best skill set consistently. Denver's done a decent job with it, and he hasn't lived up to expectations because they're not keeping him out there to run block. They're not keeping him out there to block at all. So they're just trying to, maximize what he can do on the field, but they just can't figure out a way for him to, they can get him open, but his hands have been problematic. And then there's questions of effort during his routes at times. There's how quick he gets off the line. Just a lot of issues that are just compiling up here in Denver that new coaching, new scenery could potentially help with. He's gone, though. Talking about Russell Wilson here, I believe. If the close media heads are hot on players, usually they're as good as gone. Yeah. And it's always funny to find that shift. I think I talked about it last year leading up to Nathaniel Hackett's firing. Jeudy. Yeah, Jeudy, it's very obvious how quickly the media has turned on him from just like a week ago even to now. But one thing I will say with Jeudy is Jeudy has always been a sour spot with media because he doesn't interview well. He's not afraid to say it, and a lot of people have issues. A lot of Broncos media are old school media guys, and they don't like how vocal he is on Twitter, and that creates a lot of issues, and that creates a sour view of him as well. But yeah, I mean, there's always this trend that they have. Star player, as soon as the media turns, they're on the move. We saw it with Emmanuel Sanders. We saw it last year with Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, there was a lot of defending Hackett from media close to him up until a few weeks before he got fired. And then it was like, bam, everything was Hackett's fault. They went from almost one extreme to the other extreme. And it was just a little jarring if you were paying attention to it. Michael Ronquillo saying, good evening, Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. Thank you, Michael, for joining us as always. Appreciate you. Laura says, what's up, guys? It's my baby boy's birthday party tomorrow. It turns 3 on the 23rd. Well, happy birthday to your baby boy. Hope he has a wonderful birthday. My brother will turn 43 on Sunday. So I'm taking him to the game as part of his birthday, or for his birthday and Christmas and everything else for him with how much money I've put into this trip for him. Zach Pars, I think each year we don't cut Russ, we commit to the second year up until 2025. So it's better to cut earlier than later if the implications don't change for 2 more years. No, I don't think so. It's been a while since I've looked at his full contract outside of the 5th day of the league year for this year, because that's the one that I'm focused on. Like, I can't remember exactly for sure. You might be right, but I think that after 2025 is they have outs for 2026 and that final year. It was a bad contract, and the timing of it wasn't great. Patrick coming in. Aloha, Eric. Do you think anyone would give anything for Wilson? At this point, no. And not necessarily because of Wilson, but because of the contract. There's still a lot of guaranteed money left in that contract for teams that teams would have to eat in order to take them. Um, so I just think it's tough. Bama X says, "Gotta go. See you all Sunday. Hope you get to feeling better, Eric. See you Sunday. I definitely hope so as well. With how I am with colds, I think I should be good sometime tomorrow. Because I already feel so much better than I did. I don't handle colds well. Like colds knock me on my butt. Worst thing that can happen to me. I can deal with the flu better than I can a cold. Just weird. Zach Powers coming in again. It sucks that the reality is trading Judy makes the most sense, but has nothing to do with him being a good receiver. He's super solid and hard to replace, but again, his timeline doesn't match up. I don't necessarily agree that his timeline doesn't match up. I just think that he's just essentially worn out his welcome, so to speak. And I think that part of his issue is, and you mentioned it here, honestly, Sutton and Patrick probably should not be on the team this time next year. I agree with that. It's just the amount of money they have into the wide receiver room. You can't keep all three. Some of them got to go, and honestly, it's probably best all three of them go. If you want Patrick back, it cannot be on the contract that he currently is. Same with Cortland Sutton. You got to do something about it. Maybe you can extend them and lower their cap hits, spread out that money a little bit. Got to have something to do. Got to be able to do something with that, especially with the cap situation the Broncos are in. Dylan Von Arxen, a couple tequila shots will flush it out. I've only had tequila in my life like twice. The first time was the night I met my wife. And the second time was like the third time I hung out with my wife. Obviously before we were married. That was it. Not a tequila guy whatsoever. I had no idea what I was doing. I was newly 21 too, and I drank. I'll stop myself there. Don't want to incriminate myself. But anyways, I was newly 21 and could drink legally. When I first met my wife. But yeah, that was only 2 times I had tequila, and tequila is not for me. Kevin Gray saying, "Great show, Eric. Get well." Thank you about that. Thank you for that. I hope I get well as well. Patrick, wish I could meet and greet, just not in the cars this year. Went to Cali with my family and said, "Yeah, I remember you saying that you went to Disneyland." I hope you had a wonderful time. I'm looking at doing that at some point with my daughter. My wife and I, we've always talked about it. I mean, when I was growing up, I went to Disneyland every year, multiple times. First time I went to Disneyland, I was 7 days old. But the conversation has always been, when's a good time for her? Because we want her to remember it. And, have fun and everything and not be too old for it. So we're looking at probably not next year, but probably the year after of going to Disneyland with, her, my wife, and hopefully my parents. That's always been another thing, is taking my parents for it. My mom's a big Disney mom, so it's kind of what led to this. So I want to take them for it too. How much is the cap going to raise? Not known for sure at the moment, but I believe the current projections have the cap raising. Hold on one second. I can actually pull it up. Current projections have the cap going to be about 255 million or so. That's about how much the cap is expected to go to. That means tequila makes Eric's clothes fall off. No, tequila just made my head funny. Quick thoughts on Chop Robinson. One of the top edge rushers. Absolutely love him. Probably of the edge rushers, the top 4 edge rushers I've done the most work on. The UCLA kid, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Chop Robinson. He's probably the guy I like the most at the moment. I've only watched about 2 games of each of them this year so far, I think, and then a couple games from last year. He's definitely my favorite one of the bunch so far. Patrick saying when she's tall enough for rides. Yeah, I mean, she's almost as tall as her mother right now, so she's getting there. So probably just another year or two for that. Jerry Jeudy is going to be here with the Broncos this year. If Jerry Jeudy is going to be traded, it would have to happen soon before the NFL trade deadline. We were just talking about that. A lot of teams interested in him. He's still a quality receiver that you can have, and a lot of people believe that a change of scenery is what's best for him to get the most out of him and kind of live up to that first round hype that he was getting. Trade deadline's October 31st, so there's still a little over a week left until then. 2 more games. And typically things for the trade deadline typically things heat up for the trade deadline about a week before. So this week I think is when we'll see a lot of things heat up. So we will have an extra $30 million. Roughly, the Broncos are currently projected to be over the cap by like $16 million, though, because of cap raises, and then there's performance bonuses that will go into it as well. Unearned bonuses or unexpected to be earned bonuses. A lot that goes into the cap that we still won't know about until after the season. A lot of movement. Cap's easy to work around, especially when you average owners. Just got to be careful to not kick it down too much down the road. Done some research on Jared Verse yet, Eric? Yes, I actually liked him a lot last year. I like him a lot now. If I had to put an order on the top 4 edge rushers right now, he would actually be 3rd. I like Dallas Turner. He'd be number 2, Chop Robinson, and then the CLA kid would probably be 4th. And they're all close. It's more of like a 1A, B, C, D kind of situation there. Phil coming in. Eric, I always notice your background. So am I correct? You have a giant collection, or do you run a store? Giant collection. I'm actually in the process of rearranging my office. I have a bunch of, if you can't see, I have a bunch of unmade Lego sets sitting over here that have been gifts to me from family that I'm working on putting together, rearranging shelving, rearranging the office a little bit, and just eventually going to lead to a different look for my background here. But no, didn't run a store. I worked at one of the last Blockbusters to ever be open. It was like, I believe that one of them was one of the final 3. There's one that's still open in Oregon. It was the second to last one to close in Alaska, and then the other one was the fourth to last one to close in Alaska, and that's where I got a lot of the pop figures from, because we started selling that stuff. Knowing Peyton Hill be for peanuts. From what I understand, they want a round 3 pick for Jeudy. They want that value. Jeudy to the Colts or Texans would be a good spot for him. They would be. There's quite a few spots that I think Jerry Jeudy makes a lot of sense for. Packers are one, just to help them get another route runner in that room, because the receiver room is lacking outside of Romeo Dubs. Sorry. The Patriots make some sense for them. A lot of teams make sense for Jerry Jeudy. Michael Rocco saying get well soon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Do you think the Broncos O-line can hold up in this next game, or vice versa? I think the Broncos O-line is a lot better. It's a lot better than people think. The Jets game was very telling about how many issues of quarterback pressure is a result of Russell Wilson struggling to read defenses. Doesn't mean that Mike McGlinchey isn't losing. Mike McGlinchey has been terrible. But there has been a lot of issues with identifying, blitzing, and setting up their blocking. If they can work and figure that out, I think this offensive line can do well. The Packers do have a pretty solid rotation with their pass rushers and defensive line. It's not as good as the Jets. It is better than the Chiefs. They just don't have that star player right now performing at that level like the Chiefs did with Chris Jones. So they should be able to do all right, especially in the run game. The Packers have been struggling so much against the run, losing up front. A lot of the same issues that we're having with the Broncos and their defense failing to keep gap integrity. And this is going to have to be the last one. I was initially only going to keep this half an hour, but we made it to an hour. You guys chat picked up. Thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. Helped make time fly by even faster. I'm going to have to get out of here and go shower and get ready and to fly for the next 12 hours. over 12 hours. Ooh. Anyways, Liatu would be your number one if not for the injuries. I like him as equal to Chop, but his injury concerns freak me out with his Broncos team. He has more prototypical size. No, for me at this point, I'm not factoring in injury history at this point. He would still be my number 4 right now, just based off his tape. Injuries and stuff, I don't typically, start to factor in until after the season, until we get more clear things, till I can talk to people about what happens at the combine with the medical evaluations and all that stuff like that. Chase Walner coming in. Have a good trip. Thank you for a great show. Safe travels. Great show tonight, Eric, on the Dove Valley Drivers. Go Broncos. Safe travels, Eric. You're the man. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate all your well wishes and safe travels as well. That's going to do it for tonight for Dove Valley Deep Divers. As far as I'm aware, we will be back next week with Lance and myself to break down the Packers game and just chit-chat about the meet and greet. We'll both be there. It's going to be a good time. I got Lance ticket to the game. He's going to be sitting with me and my brother. Helping make sure my brother doesn't get into any trouble. Anyways, got our other stuff here. 1 second. I don't normally do the end of show rundown, so bear with me here for a moment. Make sure you guys are following at the MHH Pod and at Mile High Huddle. At Mile High Huddle is where you can get access to all of our written content. You can think of it as the mothership Twitter account. All articles, all videos, all podcasts, everything gets tweeted out on Mile High Huddle. You can go on there and it has the information currently as to the meet and greet. Again, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I believe the plan is that we'll do a pod there. That's what we've done the last 2 weeks or the last 2 years. There from the parking lot, and we'll have people who show up typically can get a chance to step in and everything like that. Go to mhhmerch.com to get your swag on. I didn't write this. The boss man did. But you guys can get hats like the Dove Valley Deep Divers and the orange Dove Valley Deep Divers shirts, as well as, the Broncos for breakfast, coffee mugs that they have. I believe they have onesies, all sorts of stuff there that are awesome. As the holiday time comes around, they can make great holiday gifts. Make sure you guys go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Make sure you check out the Mile High Huddle Instagram account. Make sure you guys go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review. Gives you guys a chance to earn some stuff. And as always, make sure you guys subscribe, like, share. The ability of word of mouth is absolutely amazing. Come to find out, my wife's boss is actually a big Mile High Huddle fan. Has been following written content from us for a few years now. Didn't know that until a little bit ago. And unfortunately, I cannot find it for the Dove Valley Deep Divers, but you guys can follow Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast at DVDD_pod on Twitter. So make sure you guys follow me at Erick Trickel, as you guys can see on the screen, ERICKTRICKEL. Despite the more famous spelling of LE at the end of Trickle, weird story about that with my whole family that I'm not going to get into. As to why that difference happened. But thank you guys for joining me tonight. Hope those of you that are still going to be traveling to Denver for the meet and greet have safe travels. Can't wait to meet you guys there. See you there. Hit the like button, subscribe, spread the word around. Go take a one of those milk container crates. Milk crates. That's what I'm looking for. Go put it out on the sidewalk and start screaming the name and praises of Mile High Huddle. No, you guys are awesome. We appreciate the support week in, week out. You guys really enable us to do stuff that we absolutely love to do. I mean, I get to work from home and do this for a living, and just watch football. So thank you guys for that. Thank you guys for joining me. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Safe travels for those of you that are traveling. Don't drink and drive, even at the game. Enjoy the game, but hopefully the Broncos win. Anyways, we will be back this time, an hour ahead now, next week with the Dove Valley Drivers. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, go Broncos.